It is Bell Let's Talk Day. Bell making a contribution of $10 million this year towards the cause. This is the 16th year that Bell has been involved in this. So through different parts of the day, we've had a couple of different stories that involve mental health on this Bell Let's Talk Day, and this is one of them. You may be familiar with a podcast. It is called BROMANCE with Dylan Playfair and Ty Smith. It is on the iHeartRadio network, and if you check it out, you'll find it there. You can follow along too. And the co-hosts are with us right now. Dylan Playfair, who is a former hockey player, son of an NHLer. You may remember Jim Playfair, who played for many years. And Ty Smith, a hockey player and survivor of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash from several years ago, many years ago. And they're both on the line right now. Gentlemen, thanks for being here this afternoon.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
So one of you can start. Just give me an idea, first of all, how this podcast came together and what the objective was when you came up with the idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working with Charm Diamonds for quite some time, and Ty had been in the podcasting world and was also associated with Charm through The Amazing Race. He proposed to his then girlfriend, now lovely wife, and Charm was there to assist in that whole process, and they had this idea for the podcast, and mental health is something that I've been involved with over the years, and actually Sylvia, our producer, brought it to us, and I thought it was a really great idea. I think it's a very important subject, and I think Ty can speak a little bit to his experience, because I know he's engaged in the community quite heavily as well.
So, Ty, I guess I'd ask you then, when I talked about what the idea was going forward, you come together, you both know each other, but you're hockey players. What did you hope to do in this podcast?
Yeah, I think just kind of trying to make light of something that we probably don't talk about enough. And as men, we probably don't talk about our bromances enough, and our people. And I think, in trying times, it's about who's around you and your support system. And I think for us to be able to, create some fun conversations with individuals that, I personally never thought I'd be able to be chatting with, your James Hinchcliffes and your Phil Kims of the world. It's pretty fascinating how we're all so similar in the sense of, we got our people, and we got our, and to be able to really talk about how those connections have, helped us through our highs and lows, I think is, for us, it's been quite a beautiful thing, and honestly, a ton of fun.
And I would ask, I mentioned off the top, because you kind of have to let people know, we all remember the horrific, the Humboldt bus crash from so many years ago. And Ty, that's something you've had to deal with for, your entire life growing up. How first of all, how difficult was that? Was that part of what was involved in your mental health, challenge here in terms of wanting to share that with others?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in a story. And I think for me, being able to share my story is something I never thought I'd, end up doing, but I think it's what comes from that and the conversations that you have afterwards with strangers that, open up and share their story. And I think that's kind of the hopes with the podcast is, we want to propel people to start taking care of themselves even a little bit more. And we want to propel people to start, really reaching out to their friends and utilizing your resources and, following the crash. That's something I never did. I had all the resources and people in the world, and I had no desire to use them. But I think, giving people that allowance and giving people that grace to really start, taking care of themselves, but also taking care of their, connections and moving forward with their people, I think is, it's something I think we hope. And I think that's something that, comes with the mental health world. It's annoying. It's frustrating sometimes, but not a battle to be won. It's a journey to continue walking. So,
it's funny as I hear you say that, I wonder if the challenge for you at the time said, you just said all those resources were available to you, but either you didn't know or you were not in the right frame of mind to want to go ahead and use them. Is that something you found other families or, who had gone through this were facing, that kind of challenge of wanting to do something but not knowing how or being interested in doing it?
Yeah, I think, I can't really speak for everybody, I guess, but I think at the end of the day, that's just, we were thrown into a situation that, I hope nobody ever has to go through again. And I think you do have so many people, but at the time, probably a lot of people just wanted to crawl into a little ball and not come out. And I think that's something that, connection thrives when people show up for each other. And it's fascinating, the good we can do with our people and our bromances when we really do just show up. And I think that's something that we need to remind people that it's okay to not know how to reconnect sometimes. And it's okay to, I think we have this misconception that it needs to be all these big-winded, long, emotional conversations all the time. I think it's just, those little moments, those little conversations that you can have. And I think that's something that, I know Dylan and I have learned from speaking to our guests so far, is there's so many pivotal moments and pivotal people along your journey, that recognizing them and recognizing the people that you have is it's also a powerful thing.
There's also, I guess, Dylan, maybe you could speak to this as a player as well. I don't think most people looked at hockey players and really saw the vulnerability that might be involved here for some of them. Is that something you've discovered in this journey as well?
Yeah, I think the culture has changed a lot. Even I played junior 10 years ago, and that was sort of right at the bleeding edge of the culture shift where my coach, Luke Pearson Merritt, he was really big on shifting the conversation in the room as far as how we present to the community and what it means to be a hockey player and how we're, he wasn't just coaching athletes, he was coaching young men who are developing into, to becoming the people that they are going to, walk alongside for the rest of their lives. And I think that shift of, you keep your emotions bottled up and you don't talk about your feelings. I mean, that was around the time when the hockey world lost, an abnormal amount of players to, whether it was substance abuse or suicide. There was, Wade Belak, Rick Rippon. There was these players that were tough guys that were, ending their lives. And I think it forced the community to take a good hard look in the mirror and say, how are we showing up for each other and how are we addressing these issues that don't just affect athletes, but they affect everyone, and it's creating that safe space to have those conversations and not be made to feel weak if you're having trouble. And I think the things that make hockey and team sports so unique is that you have this group of people to lean on, and they're supposed to be there for you, not just in the good times and the highs, but during the lows. And I think through these conversations we find this through line where almost all of our guests have the same, the folks that they really want to celebrate with are also the ones that are there for them when they're down, when they're not winning, when they're having struggles. And I think, by talking about that and by creating a safe space where we can sort of shed light on these, stars that what they go through, I think it sort of puts everyone on an even playing field and makes it okay to talk about.
Certainly gives everyone an idea that, we don't live, no one's sort of living in a perfect world here, as great as it may be to be a professional athlete, in this case, a hockey player. Nothing's ever easy. So it's nice to see that there's an avenue here to be able to talk about feelings. And of course, on a Bell Let's Talk Day, that's what we're trying to do. Guys, I thank you both very much. Tell everybody, by the way, I'm just curious, where'd you come up with the name, or how did you come up with it, Bromance?
I think that was all Charm. Yeah, I think that was they did it perfectly, and it's true. We got a lot of bromances in our lives as men, and also just like reconnecting those bromances, and that's something that Charm is a company that obviously facilitates love and engagement and everything like that. But there's a lot of love and bromance as well, so I think it fits perfectly.
Guys, thank you so much. Really appreciate the time. Keep up the great work, and I will let people know if you want to check out the podcast Bromance. It is on the iHeartRadio network.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Kids wanna rock.